Hello and welcome to Analog Insights. In today's episode, Jules and I take a closer look at the Polaroid Flip, a brand new point-and-shoot instant film camera that sits between the high-end Polaroid I-2, which we had reviewed here before, and the Polaroid Now Plus. This camera here costs $199 or 219 euro, and what you get is a beautiful, smart and refined camera that on the one hand takes design cues from its modern, bigger sister, the I-2, but at the same time looks at Polaroid's 80-year photographic history and legacy and takes design cues from cameras from the 1970s and 80s. So in terms of features, looking at it from a higher level, what we have is a hyperfocal 4-lens system, a sonar autofocus that is very interesting, a powerful flash that reaches up to 4.5 meters, and a smart scene analysis feature that helps you avoid over or under exposure. So arguably, this is the kind of Polaroid camera the market had been waiting for. If we think back of the I-2, this was a camera addressing professionals and more ambitious amateurs. And this one here has a much broader audience, basically everyone who wants to reliably expose Polaroids. And that in a point-and-shoot fashion and kind of know, okay, if I point and shoot, it will be in focus, it will be exposed correctly, and I can just rely on the camera. Jules and I got a chance to take the camera out prior to its official release, and as one of the locations we picked the Olympic Stadium that was built in Munich for the 1972 Olympic Games, and more or less accidentally realized, okay, the colors match nicely, the vibe matches nicely to the design cues from the 1970s cameras in the Polaroid lineup. So this went beautiful, and we also got a beautiful sun that day, so mostly shot color. And of course, we can't wait to share the results here with you. Let's take a closer look at the design and features. The Polaroid Flip comes in two different colors at launch, a sleek black version and a more playful white version with a touch of color, which we have here. The camera clearly feels very similar in terms of production quality and material to the I-2, its bigger sister, so to speak, and yet you can also clearly see the references to its past. Cameras like the Polaroid one-step flash from 1989 are being referenced here, then to some extent the Polaroid Sun 660, which I have here, so you can clearly see the lineage, so to speak, in terms of the design language. Most importantly, this camera promises to always deliver high quality, well-exposed Polaroids that don't suffer from over or under exposure or out of focus images. And the big question is, how does the camera do that? It's basically a combination of the sonar autofocus and the hyperfocal 4-lens system. And the way this works is that the sonar autofocus would measure the distance to your subject, and then the camera would pick the right lens within that 4-lens system that has its sweet spot at the distance that is closest to the distance measured by the sonar. So you have 4 different lenses here with 4 different sweet spots. For the close-ups, you have a 0.65 meters lens, then you have one for 0.85 meters, then for the midfield you have 1.2 meters, and then for the far field a 2.5 meter lens. And this feature is really taken from the Polaroid Sun 660, and it was already reintroduced with the Polaroid Now Plus, but that only has a 2-lens system, so it's switching between 2 lenses, and here you have 4 different lenses that really ensure correct focus. The Flip also comes with an innovative scene analysis feature that helps you avoid over or under exposure. So within the viewfinder, you have an LED flashing off if you have a scene that would create a potential danger for over or under exposure. And the same LED also helps you avoid images that are out of focus. If you're too close to your subject, for instance, the camera would also warn you that the closest lens would not be able to capture it correctly. Within the flip lid is Polaroid's most powerful flash, as the company describes it, and it is an adaptive flash that basically adapts its brightness depending on the distance to the subject that was measured by the sonar autofocus. So a very nice feature that is perfect for portraits, for instance, or quick street shots. And again, this whole flip lid, of course, is a reference to the past and earlier cameras. You obviously start the camera by opening that flip lid, and then the camera offers different shooting modes at the backside in that display. So if you press this button here once, you select the self-timer feature. A double exposure mode comes up when you press it twice, and the EV correction if you press longer. And then there's an additional button that lets you turn the flash on or off. By default, it is turned on. The camera also comes with Bluetooth connectivity, so you can connect it to the Polaroid app on your phone and use it in a completely manual mode as well if you want that. It has an USB-C charger, so an internal battery that can be charged via USB-C, which is also convenient because most people have a USB-C cable by now to charge their phones or similar devices. And there's also a matching neck strap that the camera comes with. In this particular case, it is orange, so really bright and nice. And that also enables you to immediately start shooting the camera and don't have to wait for an additional accessory to arrive. So what about the results and the image quality? In the past, the film community kept pushing Polaroid to invest in its film material and improve it. And that was the main critique when the Polaroid I-2 was released. Yes, it's a fantastic camera, but it is limited by the film material. And can you improve that? And then Polaroid heavily invested in the film material, and we saw quite some development with respect to the black and white film and to other films. And yet in our test here, we still saw some inconsistencies, and it's still a film that needs to be stored correctly and that needs the right temperature to develop and so on. So for instance, we had some problems in colder weather where the color film developed a bluish or greenish tint because it didn't have the right temperature to develop immediately. You really need to keep it warm, ideally above 13 degrees Celsius, and of course that can be a little bit limiting. But once it's warm outside, you don't have any problems at all, and you get beautiful and also more consistent results. So the Polaroid Flip here certainly helped to bring out the most out of the film material, and we did never feel that the camera is the problem here. And the intelligence in terms of the scene analysis feature also really helps you avoid these typical errors of over or underexposure, and also the sonar autofocus worked really, really well. So across the board we got better photos out of our material, and the typical problems that you sometimes have with vintage Polaroid cameras certainly are avoided. Since the flash is turned on by default, you also get well-lit or well-exposed images typically, so you have to really turn it off for each new frame, which is perfectly fine. It only sometimes causes a problem if you have mirroring surfaces in front of you, or actually windows or something like that, glass. Then you might end up losing one frame because you have to retake it without the flash. The double exposure feature also works nice. It lets you capture two scenes on a single frame without any kind of overexposure. And what's nice is that you have even a little counter here on which frame you are at the back. What is also worth mentioning is, of course, on a philosophical level, these results here are very different. In a day and age where you have ubiquitous digital cameras because we are carrying them in our phones and everyone keeps taking pictures every day, but never really looking at them, this here is interesting because it creates these 8 frames that are actually tangible and that you can pass on to somebody. And that happened to me a lot when I, especially in the summer and in spring, if I go out with friends on to a lake or on a trip in the mountains or whatever, and I bring with me a Polaroid camera and take portraits, people actually want to get those portraits. They want to have them. They might put them on their fridge or something like that. They are tangible, physical memories of a trip, of a day that you spend with your friends. And that's, of course, very different from just having a digital film roll that you can scroll through, or a shared folder that you create in the cloud somewhere. So in my perspective, this is interesting and worth noting when we talk about these particular results. And what is also nice is that by now Polaroid offers in their app a feature that makes it as easy as possible to scan the images with your phone, to automatically then crop the borders and don't have a background for the image, and also have a little bit of an optimization here, a white balance, basically taking the border of the frame for white balance, and then you have the correct colors, a little bit of contrast, and so on. So overall, still problems with the film material here and there, and some inconsistencies, especially in colder temperatures, but here the camera itself really brings out the most of the film material. I've been in your waters. So what about the handling and our personal impressions? The handling is quite intuitive and the material feels very nice to the touch. The design is also kind of getting out of the way, and the camera does exactly what you expect it to do. So it is a point-and-shoot camera. It creates consistently good results. It makes sure that the images are in focus, that they're well exposed. All this works, and it lives up to the expectations that we had. Personally, what I really like is the design and how it kind of bridges the gap between the i2 and the modern look and feel of Polaroid cameras and the cameras, the features that made past cameras so successful. So what you have here is the resulting blend is, on the one hand, contemporary. It feels contemporary to me, but it also feels deeply rooted in Polaroid's past. And as a result, this design for me is not only very clean and fun, but it also feels purposeful in that way. Looking at the product images, I was instantly drawn to the black version at first, but the white version has really grown on me. And what I particularly like is that you don't leave any traces with your fingerprints, or you don't have any kind of smudges on it. It just stays clean and white, at least in the days and weeks that I've used it here. So I really, really like the design and has grown on me. The only thing that I noticed and that feels a little bit harsh visually to me is the red shutter release button on that orange. It's obviously part of the Polaroid corporate identity and the colors that they're using, but to me that contrast felt a little bit harsh, and I feel like the black version is a bit cleaner here. Loading film and taking a shot is very intuitive, and the quick instruction guide helps you quickly get your head around the camera. And as mentioned before, you turn the camera on by flipping the lid up on the front, and then this results in a relatively noisy sound that comes from the lens system here. And then if you half press the shutter release button, it also selects the right lens. Again, kind of a noise that also serves nice as a confirmation that now your image would be in focus. And if you press the shutter release button, then you get a louder sound that might draw some attention, and if you're more on the introverted side like I am, it might be a little bit uncomfortable in some situations. So it's not a stealthy camera at all. Rather, it celebrates that mechanical and analog process that is going on with kind of the tongue coming out, the frame coming out, and then taking out that frame. It's more of a noisy exercise, and yet it feels very, very nice, and you really get used to it. I found myself having so much fun with the camera that I was eating through an 8-frame magazine relatively quickly. While the camera is on the larger side, it still serves well as a point-and-shoot camera, and I can certainly see myself taking it with me on a weekend trip, as I said, with friends, going to a lake or a cabin or into the mountains or whatever, and just having this camera with me and then sharing physical memories of that trip with the friends and relatives that were part of it. So this is really, really nice about the camera, and I cannot stress that enough. You don't get perfect results here. You do get often keepers instead, images that you like as pieces of memories, and it's certainly not as predictable and as consistent in terms of the results as regular 35mm or medium format film that we're usually discussing here on the channel, and yet it's still a really, really nice result with a certain character. So if there's one thing I would say, okay, the film material still needs some more work, but the camera itself, for the €200 that you're roughly paying, is a fantastic summer and spring camera for me that I can highly recommend taking a look at, and maybe just purchasing to have it with you during the summer and have some fun images to share with family and friends. So, thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Analog Insights and our review of the Polaroid Flip. In my not-so-humble opinion, this is the perfect addition to the Polaroid lineup and arguably exactly what the market was looking for. It sits right in between the entry-level models and the significantly more advanced and capable but also more expensive Polaroid I-2. And whoever's doing product design at Polaroid exactly nailed, in my opinion, what enthusiasts like me are looking for in a Polaroid camera. It's supposed to be not so expensive, but still offer nice features like a reliable autofocus, a good lens system, and good quality results, and yet have clearly traceable roots to the design language from the 1970s and 80s that Polaroid is so famous for. So in my opinion, a great camera that nicely combines all these different aspects, and it still feels nice to switch between the cameras because they feel unique and different enough, and yet have a lot of similarities when it comes to the product design and the materials and the overall quality. So the only downside is a little bit the film material that still needs a bit more work. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please remember to like it and maybe even share it with your friends. And if you want to see more videos like this, please subscribe to our channel. Jules, Greg, and I really appreciate each and every subscriber coming our way. So thanks for watching. I hope to see you soon. Bye.